Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Feed My Sheep, Earthquake Reports, and more. I'm Terry Rempel, of course, and Esther's just over there. And we're looking at the Cascade Range and the extension south, in fact, all the way down into Mexico. So I'm going to begin by taking us through the volcanoes. So we're going to go up to the top because we started in kind of the wrong spot here. There we go. We were looking at the large earthquake yesterday. So starting at the Salton Sea, Bombay Beach, we're going to have a quick look at the remainder of that earthquake, how many earthquakes we had in that area in Alaska, west southwest of Kodiak. Bombay Beach, Salton Sea. Now, this has become increasingly active, and it's pretty obvious. Anybody that's watching this program, I haven't been on for a while. You can see a big change from when I last posted on Bombay Beach, Salton Sea. That's a lot of, and what are the signals? The signals are magma, long period pulsed magma signals. That's why they have all the geothermal south of Salton Sea, because there's active magma underground there. And not that far from the surface. South Clear Lake Volcano. So we get a look at the tremors that are there, the south end of Clear Lake Volcano in California. And there's a lot of tremor activity daily at this site. It's staying much the same. It's a little bit busier, not much. And this is a little east of Clear Lake Volcano, and we can see the long period pulsed magma signals underground there as well. So it's not limited to just the area of the volcano itself or the lake itself, but it's the surrounding area. It goes down into Berryessa Lake and other points south along that same trend, following east. A look at Mammoth Mountain. So lots of activity at Mammoth Mountain. That's yesterday. All of these so far are from yesterday. Well, north of Mammoth. Interesting that we're having this type of activity well north of Mammoth, and we've got tremors there as well. Now, looking back at Mount Lassen, this is the CO2 release, and you get that with magma. Subduction magma has a lot of carbon in it, and you get carbon dioxide release as a result. So there's what we're looking at, in very high levels of release going back a month. Okay, we're missing one line that goes through the top on the left-hand side. So it's a peak that's a little larger than this one here. So very active at Mount Lassen, and this is an increase in CO2 discharge since very significantly, about 40-50% more than the higher levels that we had 6 months ago. Now, all the best close Mount Lassen seismometers are turned down. This one is northeast of Lassen by 10-15 miles, something like that. And it shows lots of activity. So that's an increase in activity in the area of Mount Lassen as well over the last 6 months. North Mount Shasta is much the same as normal. Okay, this isn't a big change. We are seeing steaming episodes from Mount Shasta, as I've described as well. The south base of Mount Shasta, so that's north of McLeod, about halfway to Mount Shasta. And we're seeing uplift fracture signals from what? Typically from magma when it's in the vicinity of a volcano. Oh, and just for scale, this is the earthquake in Alaska. So this across the bottom here, that's the Alaska 7.8. So this is in no way over amplitude. Medicine Lake Volcanic Field, very, very active, and this is a very significant increase. There's the the earthquake in Alaska across the bottom here. All of these flashes of red, uplift fracturing signals all around Medicine Lake volcanic field. Crater Lake, Wizard Island, and that's an increase at Medicine Lake of about 50% from 6 months ago again. Crater Lake, Wizard Island, and I'm just comparing to the average activity. There's always spikes in activity as well. Crater Lake, Wizard Island, general increase in light tremors. So you can see that through here. There's very significant light tremors. That's magma movement down deep. Here's the Alaska earthquake. That's many hours of magma movement. We see the same thing at Newberry, looking a little different, but it's this is just at the northeast or northwest side of Newberry craters. A very active site as well, and this is an increase. It's the volume is much higher. The size is not that much higher, but the volume is much higher. The volume of activity. Sisters, Oregon is not significantly changed. This is about what we were seeing on and off at Sisters, so that's not significant. But I thought I'd show it to you anyway. This is Mount Hood at Timberline. This is the south site, and this is just a small increase in activity for Mount Hood, maybe 20-25% of what the background average is, or was 6 months ago. Mount Adams on the 15th from the west flank, so I had to dig around a little bit with Mount Adams to get you some activity that's there. There is a significant increase in activity at Mount Adams over the last 6 months, and that's why they put new seismograms around it for a time. They added 3, I believe. I think 2 are now disabled. 1 remains, so they've doubled up. This is south of Mount Adams on the 14th, one of the remaining sites. So very, very active. Active deep signals, deep movement. Sugar Bowl, Mount St. Helens. Of course, Mount St. Helens is active. It's a rebuilding volcano after its explosion in, 1980. So we're continuing to have activity at Mount St. Helens as the mountain rebuilds itself, the rising dome. That's where we're at with this. We're on top of the rising dome. Now, looking north to Trade Dollar Lake, we see a bunch of geothermal pumping activity signals. So that's what we're looking at there. I just thought I'd show it to you for interest's sake. Now, Mount Rainier. They're talking about the excessive activity at Mount Rainier, all the earthquakes and stuff. Okay, so here's a look at yesterday at Mount Rainier. And that's not going back a long ways. Now there's an earthquake cluster. They're all small earthquakes, 1s and 2s, mid 2s. So not significant size, but swarming. And this is the very same activity via PNSN. We can see that from the very same site, same day, same location, I think it's even the same channel anyway, the amplitude is way down through a lot of the channels that the presentations of PNSN as compared to USGS. So here's the earthquakes at Mount Rainier. This is showing just a few days. Actually, I think this is showing a week of earthquakes. And so you can see where they're at. They're following a trajectory that's moving from the southwest to the northeast. Lots of earthquakes. No argument that there's a cluster of earthquakes there. They're significant. They're not pointing to an eruption at this point because we're not getting earthquakes in the low 4s, high 3s, low 4s, which are much more significant. But we are getting magma rise through what we've seen so much uplift fracturing on the flanks of Mount Rainier over the past 3 years. We know that this has been reactivating for over 10 years. So this is well along towards eruption, and but that's in geologic time. We could have a couple of years, 3 years before it erupts, or it may quieten down again. We just don't know. But what we do know is the process of subduction, when we're seeing multiple volcanoes getting busier along a subduction margin, which is what we're seeing all through the Cascades range, that this points to the process of subduction being underway. And that's what we're pointing at, is it's not just Mount Rainier, it's the whole range. They've got reactivation at, at Edgecombe, in the Alaska Panhandle, at Warrenkovsky Island, the Wrangell site. That one has reactivated as well. Nobody's admitting that one's reactivating, but they're certainly agreeing that Edgecombe is reactivating. And then there's a new volcano reactivation been going on for about a year just north of Anchorage. So there's a lot of activity going on all the way down. Salton Sea certainly busier. Mammoth Mountain's certainly busier. Mount Lassen. Hood has been at times. Newberry, Crater Lake. We're showing you the increases all the way down. These actually extend down into Mexico. We're going to get there as well. So this is north of Mount Rainier at Mount Fremont, a small related volcanic mountain. That's the Alaska earthquake there. Still continuing to see, some of this is related to Mount Rainier directly, but some of it's actually north as well. This is about 10 miles south of Glacier Peak on the 14th, so we continue to see activity north following the volcanic trend of the Cascade Range. North and south, Glacier Peak itself has a significant increase in activity. This is a big increase from what we had 6 months ago and even a year ago, or the other way around, a year ago or even 6 months ago. This is a lot of background tremors, and we're seeing then reactivation of Glacier Peak as well. And that change is not being reported. The focus is on Mount Rainier. The focus should be all through the whole range, because we've shown activity at CX Cone, at Garibaldi. We've shown it at Mount Baker, Mount Constitution. There's been a lot of activity all up and down, and to focus just on Rainier is omitting so much pertinent information. So this is southwest of Mount Baker. We don't have a good look at Mount Baker going right now. So this is southwest. You can see the earthquakes there, small earthquakes and tremors. This is Bellingham. Bellingham has an awful lot of tremors pretty much every day. And what is that from? That's the process of subduction underway. There isn't a known major fault. I mean, there can be a fault through Bellingham that's crustal related, but the big one is between the surface crust and the oceanic plate, continental crust and the oceanic plate. This is Mount Constitution on the 15th. Lots of tremors there. Not big ones, but a lot of them. Looking down to Mexico, we're due west of Mexico City by about 200 miles. This is Pico de Tancetero, and it's swarming with earthquakes. There's the swarm right there. Now, how does this relate to Rainier? Well, it doesn't exactly, but this is kind of Mexico's relative of Mount Rainier. This one, Mount Rainier rises to 14,410 feet, I think, above sea level. And this one rises to 12,610 feet. It's kind of a comparable size volcano, and it's also a big stratovolcano built by the process of subduction. And it's about the same distance from the shoreline. as some of the bigger Cascade range volcanoes. So it's a very similar ring of fire North American stratovolcano being reactivated by the process of subduction. And here's the cluster looking a little closer. Oh, I'll blow this one up first. There you go. So there's Colima. This is supposed to be a long extinct volcano. It's not supposed to, they said, oh, the last time it erupted was 237,000 years ago. I don't buy there were years, but it's certainly not extinct, not with this level of activity right on the flanks of the volcano. And here's a look at the cluster a little bit more spread out. They're only showing 2.1 to 3. I think 3.2 was the largest. That means they're not showing, as compared to Mount Rainier, they're not showing the ones larger, between the 1 and 2. And then you have sub 1.0 earthquakes called 0-point earthquakes. They're not showing those either. So there's actually every bit as much or more activity going on at Pico di Tancetero than there is at Mount Rainier. But nobody's reporting on this one. Nobody much, anyway. Well, we can blow that right up. There you go. Look around on that. That's a big old volcano. Yeah, Mount Rainier rises to 14,410, and Tancetero is 12,641. Both above sea level. Now, we're going to have a quick blow through the shoreline tremors in Oregon and Washington, because if you're having subduction, you're going to have shoreline tremors. And those are going to extend inland. I didn't go in between to go inland because it's just too many to cover in a short video. And this is long enough already. So this is southern Oregon, Pistol River on the 14th. So a bunch of tremors there. That's actually because of the channel, it's not showing the VLF waves. And there's the VLF waves that are associated with that. And if we look on the 13th, there's a little clearer seismogram, and that's what the VLF wave kind of looks like. So Pistol River is having tremors and VLF waves. This is moving north to Wedderburn. And you can see the tremors are lighter. That'll probably be a VLF wave, but I don't have the channel to pick that up. As we go to Bandon, Oregon, we can see the activity is increasing on the shoreline. Just we happen to catch it today. These are today's seismograms, so that's why I was not on earlier this morning. I was loading up current activity because at 5 o'clock this all changes. They've got an algorithm that changes an awful lot of the PNS and seismograms. So if you look at back data, you often won't find good back data. This is Lakeside, Oregon on the 16th, not on the 17th. There's a good solid fault shift, plate edge, continental edge movement tremors. Subduction tremors. Big string of them there. At Reedsport, they're spread out all over. You don't get the strings quite as solid, but you get generally a lot more activity. That's a lot of tremor activity. And at the last 2-3 sites here, this is a significant increase from Bandon, Lakeside, and Reedsport. This is Yakuts, Oregon. I think I'm pronouncing that right. Yaha?
Yahat.
Yahat. Okay, Yahats. And lots of tremors. A little different form, but lots of tremors. That's, again, displaying subduction. This is Depot Bay, Oregon. A little lighter, but same type of activity. Lincoln City, Oregon, not to be outdone. This, if I had the right channel, would show up as a VLF wave. Lots and lots of fine tremors run in conjunction with the VLF wave going through. So we're having certainly fault shift, and the only fault that's there that we're aware of is, or the main one, is the Continental override over the Pacific Plate system. Hemlock, Oregon, we're continuing north. Lots of tremors. Hemlock's a somewhat new site, so I don't have a background for that one. But Nehalem, we're seeing an increase there. This is Nehalem. Large and small tremors. Seaside, Oregon. An awful lot more of the small tremors. Little tremor strings through here at the top as well, and at the bottom. One after the other, tied right end to end. Southwest Washington, just a few miles north of the Columbia River. This seismogram compared to the last is a little bit turned up, a little more sensitive, so it's showing the activity a little larger. I don't think it's any larger. So this basically looks like this, if the amplitude's the same. Whoops, let's get that down. Pacific Beach, moving north. This seismogram's turned down quite a bit. So there's lots of lines where you don't see anything on them, or enough of them that you can say that this seismogram's turned down. The baseline is too flat. This is Kingston in the South Puget Sound, carrying on with tremor activity up the coastline. LaConner on the 15th. This is a very high amplitude set seismogram, so the activity looks significantly larger, probably double what it should. But it's still a lot of activity. On the 15th, this is Bellingham today. We showed you Bellingham yesterday, early in the program. And looking back at the earthquake up in Alaska, that's the origin earthquake here. And then we've got all the aftershocks. Some of these are up to 5.7. I think this one's a 5.7. There's 5.3 and a 5.4, something like that. So there's some larger aftershocks as well. So a significant sized earthquakes with a lot of aftershocks. Now a few others just to wrap it up. I found these ones interesting. West of Mammoth in the Sierra Nevadas. Up at the top is the very tail end of the Alaska earthquake. So this is all quite different activity than we see at Mammoth itself in the Sierra Nevadas. This is the Postpile area west of Mammoth. This is northeast of Lassen, and look at the activity this morning. So this is just before I came on. I thought I'd grab this because it's pretty significant activity. Lots of uplift fracturing. And this is west of Susanville. Just before I came on, we've got a small earthquake there and an awful lot of tremors. It's a whole volcanic field west of or east of Mount Shasta and Mount Lassen. Major volcanic area. That's why Medicine Lake is so active. So it's a part of that same volcanic field system. So there we have it. You've had a recap showing all the activity. But keep in mind, this activity increase runs all the way from Anchorage, north of Anchorage. I've just forgotten the name of the volcano there for some reason. But regardless, all the way down, we've shown activity at we don't have a lot of locations that we can show you in BC, but we've shown you enough in the past to establish that it's busy all the way from Alaska through BC, through Washington, and Oregon into California, and now into Mexico, mid-Mexico with volcanic reactivation. So there's reactivation all the way down the coast, and that's telling us about the movement of North America west-northwest as it pushes across, causing the Pacific plate to subduct underneath, shoving it down underneath as it overrides it. So that's what's going on, and the rate is accelerating. As friction is reduced, then the push that is happening from over 300 years of pressure buildup starts letting go at an increasing pace, and that's what we're seeing. All right. So do we have anything imminent, and where should we look? I honestly don't know. It's when the earthquake, the big megathrust, continental-sized megathrust earthquake is going to occur, And I think it's going to be the whole continent that shifts. I don't think it's just going to be the Juan de Fuca plate involved. So this would be a larger earthquake than normal for the Cascade Range because we've extended it all the way to, or the activity, we haven't extended it. The activity of subduction is showing all the way to Alaska, North Alaska, and or mid coastal Alaska at least, north of Anchorage, all the way down into Mexico. So that's very significantly extends the length. And when you extend the length of a subduction earthquake, you make it very significantly larger. And we're seeing over double the length of what was already the longest earthquake in the world. All right. So that's what we're coming up towards. But it's not looking imminent. We don't have enough volcanic activity at the volcanoes to tell us that we've got anything imminent. Will we have large earthquakes? We will certainly have larger earthquakes coming up before we ever have the large subduction event. I expect that we're going to get some low 8 range earthquakes before we have the big subduction event. And that's kind of our biggest warning signal. When you start seeing 8s, through the Cascade Range, California, Oregon, 8s, magnitude 8s. Then be worried about having a 9 plus coming after that, because 8s not even close to the real size of what's coming. All right? So that's a precursor, that's a warning earthquake of what's coming when we see that.
Okay, yeah, sorry about that.
So
So
we'll see you again on Feed My Sheep Earthquake Reports and more. We're going to continue covering all of this. We slowed down our coverage, but we stay on top of it. So we'll see you next time on Feed My Sheep Earthquake Reports and more. Go with God's blessing, and bye for now. I'm going to have a short prayer after this, so you can stay if you like. Our Heavenly Father, we thank you for the protection you provide this program, the protection that you provide through salvation for all your children. We pray for all those that are on the fence, that they make a decision in truth, for truth, and move towards greater understanding of truth. There's so much of a conflict going between good and evil right now, and it's really becoming more and more apparent, and there's an obvious cause for this as we come through end times into the last days. And so we can see a culmination of many things as mankind fights against mankind in so many different ways. It's really incredible. And we thank you for your angels about us, and for the protection you provide your children, and the grace that you provide to their families to some degree. All of this in Jesus' name, amen. And thank you for joining us. Bye for now.